Hello, friends. It's John Woods, the CTO at the Algorand Foundation, coming to you live from just outside Barcelona, Spain, where we're having our first inaugural DevRel Retreat. Castell de Code. They made me hold up that sign like that. Okay. I'm not here alone. I'm joined by my friend and colleague.
Hi, I'm Larkin Young. I'm the head of product here at the Foundation, and happy to be here.
And I'm happy he's here because, of course, Min and Mark shot a podcast episode without me. And I guess, I'm interested to see what kind of numbers I bring in by shooting one with Larkin and see who wins,
Yeah, let's hope we bring him up.
So it's hot here, but we're going to talk about even hotter things. We're going to talk about the tech. We're going to talk about what's being built this week by the invitees who've come down to Barcelona to work on code for the entire retreat. And we're also going to have my other friend and colleague, Fred Estante, who's going to join us later in the episode to give an overview of all of the things that are happening in the ecosystem. But first, before we get the developers in and before we talk to Fred, let's talk to Larkin. Now, Larkin has been working extremely hard delivering AlgoKit 3, which is a watershed moment for Algorand. It's a tectonic shift in the developer experience. And we're going to jump in, dive into that with Larkin and learn a little bit about the journey from AlgoKit 2, which was already good if I do say so myself, to AlgoKit 3. So Larkin, tell me, what's it been like over the last year? And
It's been quite a ride. I joined actually almost exactly a year ago. Joined the Foundation, as you know,
Yep.
and just after the release of AlgoKit 2.0, which, as you mentioned, was an innovative release in itself, bringing Algorand Python to the ecosystem, allowing developers to build smart contracts using a high-level Python programming language. And that was huge. That was a big breakthrough moment. And really the first piece in our sort of broader campaign to come to where the developers are, to lower those barriers of entry for development and to simply reduce the friction to that developer experience, to go from zero to deploying an application in as little time as possible.
yeah, like when I joined the Foundation, 3 years ago, and Larkin and I, by the way, used to work together at Consensus, so we knew each other from previous work together. Yeah. And so I've been here about 3 years. As Larkin said, he joined about a year ago. But in that first period when I first joined, the option to build apps was essentially PyTeal or Teal. Yeah. Teal, to remind viewers, is like the low-level assembly-like language of.
And it's a beautiful, elegant language, of course. But
yeah, no, it is. It is elegant as an instruction set or whatever, or as a collection of mnemonics, but like not fun to build with.
No, it's esoteric. It's still language learned. It's a steep learning curve, and that's of course why you had the idea to bring in Python as a high-level language, and it was a brilliant move.
Yeah, I think. Well, it's as you said, it's like reduced go-to-market costs, it's reduced maintenance costs, and it's also lowered the barrier to entry critically. And I think, the language is important, but so is like the other tooling that we brought in, like tools to build, test, and deploy. People who are used to building with a Node or Rust will be used to like NPM or Cargo or I don't know, Swift's package manager or whatever. That helps them build, test, and deploy apps. And so we needed something like that. But as you said, Python was a watershed moment. It was cool, but we didn't stop there. And so when we released 2.0, I felt like AlgoKit 2.0, I felt like we had addressed some critical things. So we had addressed the unit test piece. We had addressed the command line tools for build, test, and deploy. We had addressed
utils.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we had also addressed, I guess, as you just said, an open and inclusive, modern, fun language. Yeah. So, obviously, I don't want to big myself up, but AlgoKit 2 was good. But it wasn't.
No, it's amazing. It's fantastic. It was really cool. And we took that. So we took the idea of bringing the Web3 experience closer to Web 2 development and took that even further. So with AlgoKit 3.0, of course, the huge, sexiest thing that we have with that is Algorand TypeScript, which brings a syntactically complete, semantically complete implementation of the TypeScript programming language to Algorand. So now,
the thing about it is, I'll say I'm not a huge fan of TypeScript personally in my day-to-day engineering. Or in my hobby stuff that I do in my free time, but it doesn't matter because it is the most popular language globally by many surveys. And so Python was cool, but like not everyone likes Python. Yeah. It's certainly hot in AI and machine learning, but I think the feedback you've gotten on the decision to execute and bring Algorand TypeScript has been huge. Right?
It's been really great. Yeah, it's been really validating. I think we've had a lot of people who maybe were originally using TealScript, for example, which is a sort of an earlier iteration of a language that our colleague Joe Polney built.
Yep.
And which is a fantastic language, but obviously we wanted to bring a more idiomatically familiar TypeScript implementation.
Yeah, and I think it's like, so yeah, Larkin just mentioned Joe. So Joe is one of our was one of our DevRels, excuse me. He's now a full-time senior engineer. But whilst he was a DevRel, and in one of the first few weeks that I joined, in his own time in his hotel room when we were on a trip in Dubai for Algorand, he started his own little compiler that started very simply, but ended up becoming, as you said, TealScript, which was essentially a way to use TypeScript syntax to write smart contracts, and it became so popular with the community. We wanted to essentially formalize support for this, and so rather than we spent a lot of time, and you can talk to this maybe, but building the architecture for AlgoKit. So the compiler pipeline takes front-end languages like Python and now TypeScript and compiles them into an intermediate representation where we have optimization stages, and then finally spits out AVM bytecode that runs on the AVM.
Right.
And so we looked at what Joe did, and of course we loved the brilliance of the compiler.
Joe is amazing.
Yeah, you're right, but we wanted to leverage the work we'd already done with AlgoKit Python and with Puya, because some of the formal architecture and formal design that went into that makes the language safer. And so, by essentially formalizing a transition away from TealScript into what is now Algorand TypeScript, it's been I think the best of both worlds. We've captured the work that Joe has done in a production product, but also brought a new language.
Yeah, I think it's exciting for TypeScript developers because they now can essentially use TypeScript end to end. On their front end, back end, deployment scripts, so everything can be done in the same language. So you have a converged code base, which is
right. So your point is you write your smart contract, sure, but you also will have a UI for that or a website, and you're saying you can basically end to end the thing with TypeScript.
Exactly. Yeah, you can have one skill set to build the entire stack of your application, and that's really powerful. And being able to take advantage of things like your existing tool sets, you can you write just like you would TypeScript, like you normally would. There's no differences in how you work and within your IDE. It's all the same. There are a few differences in the implementation, which are of course are a result of the constraints of the AVM. But generally speaking, you write TypeScript.
Yeah, no, totally. And before we move on to the next cool feature of AlgoKit 3, what was the first language that you learned? And I know you're not in an engineering role.
Java.
Specifically, Java, right? Because for me, it was like C. And I think that I just think we've transitioned to a place where everyone, I think, in university learns what I consider kind of web kind of friendly languages like TypeScript or JavaScript. And I don't think there's as much focus anymore on those low-level system languages as there used to be. It's interesting.
Yeah, and say what you will about, you may not be a big fan of TypeScript, but you can't argue with the fact that, it's used everywhere. And even if you are not a fan of it, you probably still know it.
Yeah, and I say I'm not a fan because I like very rigid, static, language that let you do anything you want.
It's a preference thing. Everyone's got preferences, and that's how we feel like with Python and TypeScript, we've tapped into a very large swath of the developer population. It's like we're covering a huge pool there with that skill set.
Yeah, and by the way, just a quick aside, sorry, I'm not following the script exactly here, but we'll be able to bring new languages to the front end of AlgoKit using this Puya compiler, and so, there's nothing stopping us from adding C or Rust or, you name it, to the front end, COBOL maybe.
Or even something that community doing. I mean, once we separate the Puya compiler backend, you really just have to write a new front end for it, once you have the specs. And I mean, that's...
And so then the lift, the technical lift to bring a new language doesn't require you to implement the compiler pipeline stages, just the front end parser. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell me, obviously TypeScript is a headline feature, but there's more to AlgoKit 3 than just TypeScript. Do you want to talk maybe some of the
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, the big product we released as part of AlgoKit is LoRa the Explorer, which is a great name, by the way. I think it's really clever, which stands for, what is it, the...
Local on-chain resource on?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Something like
that.
Yeah. Anyway, we never refer to it as the long name. Obviously, we just call it LoRa. But LoRa is at its core a blockchain explorer, which allows you to inspect assets and accounts and transactions on the blockchain And the really cool feature that I think is just the biggest innovative aspect of LoRa is this rich transaction visualizer that we have.
Yeah.
It used to be when you looked at, the records on the chain, it would be so difficult to really figure out exactly at a glance what's going on.
Right.
To trace your transaction flow from end to end. With this, it's right there in a beautiful diagram, and it's so easy to read, and it's an incredible resource for developers. Because, we see LoRa as a developer tool first and foremost, but it's also just an explorer.
Right. And so that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
LoRa is very lightweight. And so essentially you can run it, you do run it locally when you're developing.
Right.
We have a hosted version of it where people can use it as a regular old block explorer. But as Larkin said,
It's funny, it was never supposed to be deployed on the internet. It was supposed to be just a desktop binary. But
right, it was never supposed to be deployed, right?
People started using it so much, they're like, we couldn't take it down.
Yeah, we better host it, an instance of this, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. When you learn to write software, right? When you're in school or whatever, or college or whatever, or university, one of the first things you kind of learn with mainstream procedural languages is that line 1 happens, then line 2 happens, then line 3, until it gets to the end of the code and then it stops, right? Essentially. And so you don't really have that with blockchain development in the same way, because you write these contracts and sure, they're lines of code and the code is followed and you compile them and stuff like you do normal software. But when they're on chain, you put the app on the chain. To interact with it, you have to send a transaction.
Yep.
And so we wanted it to have a way to allow developers to see the flow and double click into what is happening on the chain when you invoke a contract, or when you call a contract, or when you try to use a contract, essentially, in a visual way. And I think that the team and yourself have done a terrific job. It just demystifies the whole thing.
Well, I can't take much credit for these. The teams we have, our own Algorand engineering team, of course, and our partner SpakerX have done a phenomenal job on this.
Yes.
And one of the pieces that they also built as part of LoRa was the transaction builder. So you can actually, before, if you wanted to craft transactions and send them, you would have to, mess up with a JSON, or you'd have to use SDK.
Right.
Obviously, you could go real low level and go with just use the REST API, of course, to Algorand Dev, but this allows you to really visually just build transaction groups and to see them laid out, see all the different parameters, and it's just so easy. Like you can do everything within LoRa essentially if you wanted to. So that's really an amazing tool as part of the development process.
When we first started down this road of let's make the dev tools great. We didn't. It wasn't clear to any of us that we needed a LoRa. It was clear we needed to do a new language, right?
Sure.
Python or whatever. But it wasn't clear that we needed a LoRa. But it has become, and okay, maybe I should speak for myself. I think it has become one of the most important kind of happy coincidences kind of thing. It was just it came out of the idea that we would have a visual debug.
Yeah, there was a need and you built a thing for it, and it just evolved from there. And I think it's an incredible tool, of course. And the thing is, I don't want to touch too much on the new roadmap, but one of the things we're going to do is take LoRa, put it into a desktop version so we can really tightly integrate it with your IDE, so you can do things like a hot module reload type functionality. So when you make changes to your smart contract, for example, that will automatically redeploy your application into LoRa, bring up LoRa for you to view and execute transactions on it. And that's honestly just bringing it that much closer to that Web 2 experience and being able to get from the zero to deployment in no time at all.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Now, I know there's lots of other stuff in Algorand 3,
sure.
I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe
we can talk about these things forever.
Local compilation and other things like that, I guess, are in there. But is there anything else you wanted to speak to before we end?
The utils is one of the big libraries we have. So that's sort of we have one in Python and TypeScript, and provides pretty much all the functionality for interacting with assets on chain, accounts, and sending transactions, minting NFTs, whatever you want to do on the chain. And we redesigned that. A lot of work went into making it so that it's intuitive to use. We feel like you can start using it without really any documentation. You can just start using it. It's very intuitive, and that's a really powerful feature that we've released as well. There's also subscriber libraries, so that's real-time monitoring on the chain. Subscribing to transactions and other events, and being able to interact with those and react to them real time.
And so, people will know Web3.js maybe on the Ethereum side. You want to follow the chain. You need to see if an event happens. We didn't have that, and now we do. And so, subscriber is a really cool declarative way to basically watch for events on chain. I think it's a huge release for us.
Huge. Yeah, and the other big thing as well, I forgot to mention even, which is quite big, the AVM debugger. So this allows you to do visual debugging, breakpoint debugging of your smart contracts. And I think that the aha moment for me was watching one of our colleagues, Al, who was doing a demo of this, and he had a smart contract written in TypeScript, one written in Python, and one written in Teal. And he actually traced the execution flow from all 3 smart contracts within the same interface. And it was just such a wow, this is what we've been driving at this whole time.
And line-by-line debugging may sound like a primitive that you would expect. And
It's very uncommon in Web3.
It's very uncommon in Web3, absolutely. Yeah. And so it's another killer feature of Algorand 3. So now I think it's time to invite some of our esteemed guests up to talk about what they've been doing this week whilst they've not actually been doing any work on their real companies. So first up, let's bring Patrick Bennett, the CEO of Transaction Labs, to the stage and to the show. Patrick, welcome.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
Yeah, I expected maybe we can add in post, we can add some trumpets or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, while we're not doing work.
Yeah, you're always working.
No, I mean, I had to say, yes, that this is a beautiful place. And there's a lot of talks. And so, yeah, I was expecting to be working on a bunch of things, and instead it's like I've been going to talks and networking and socializing, and it's been fantastic. So actually today is the first time I actually had a window where I was actually going to try to get some coding done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you do like to code because I've spent a lot of time with you while you've been doing it. So have you kind of built anything, or have any of the participants from Transaction Labs kind of decided to do a little proof of concept or something?
I mean, with this kind of constrained time window, and I knew there, it would be too much, I'd try to pick something kind of simple to do. And I had started on it a little bit before I came, a little bit in the flight. But I was going to do a simple token drop contract. Basically just a way for just something we want to use in an upcoming app of ours, but also anyone could use it. But you'd be able to throw tokens into this contract, define an end date, because it's okay, say I want to give 100,000 or 1 million of my tokens to random people, but I don't want it to just sit there forever. So if all those tokens aren't gone, I could say 1,000 per account or something like that. If they're not gone by 30 days or something, then I want to be able to get them back. Okay. So you can define an end date, and then you'll be able to define all kinds of gating criteria. And I'll just take the gating criteria
That's really cool.
out of Ready. And so you'll be able to say anyone who holds at least X amount of this asset, or who owns these NFTs created by this artist, or who owns an NFT segment of this NFT.
Right.
And then I'm probably going to take that gating contract actually and just put that into its own contract that then anyone can use for anything.
Okay.
So you could use that, kind of compose and call that gating contract on top of anything else you have. So you could say, if I want someone who meets this criteria to be able to call my contract, they could make use of that.
I see. So they would opt in themselves and call to kind of pull
No,
that.
they would not. It's just something that you would just you would have your contract call this gating contract with kind of the value to verify, and you would pass in your criteria of what you want to gate on, like assets or NFTs, things like that. And they would just do those checks for you and return true or false.
And what's really interesting use case is how that originate? How did you come up with that idea?
Well, because it's in Ready. So in Ready, when you add a validator in Ready, one of the things you can do, because you wanted to make it so that a validator for a community project, for example, they might want to say, hey, I want members of the community to be able to add stake to a pool that I run, but I only want people who are from my community, right? So it might be an NFT artist. They could say, well, anyone who owns one of my NFTs can join my staking pool.
Yeah.
Right. Or anyone who's bought one of my, they might have an NFT root and they open it up for segments. So they could say anyone who has one of the NFT segments of my project, of which that project gets recurring revenue from with the renewal model of NFTs. They could say if they hold the NFTs, then they can add stake. And then what's even cool is the node daemon even keeps track and will boot people from the staking pool.
Okay.
Like if they sell their NFT or they sell their NFT or whatever, it'll kick them out. So I just took kind of that gating, conditional checks and stuff and just put it in this contract. But then I was talking to someone else here today, and it's just, it'd be kind of cool if that was just its own contract.
Yeah.
That you could call and check. I'm actually, that's a good idea. So I think I'm gonna, I need to work on that.
And for those who don't know, Patrick's company, Transaction Labs, built the Ready pooling solution. So the idea of a peer-to-peer pool that we have, so that folks or people who have less than 30,000 algos, which is the minimum threshold by which you're allowed to earn rewards for staking, so that they can come together and they can pool safely in a decentralized way with people all over the world. You can pool together.
Give rewards, yeah.
Yeah, and earn rewards. And so it's a very cool product. And it's not the first time that we've seen it kind of leveraged. So Reti itself, leveraged to deliver a new product. And so obviously what you're working on this week is one, but also the no loss lottery.
That's pretty funny.
Algo Tardio, is that right? Or Tardly?
It's I think they call it like Tardly Finance or something. It's kind of making fun of like
Tardly Finance sounds.
Because Yieldly was one of the first like dApps on Algorand. Like this is going way back.
That was it. Okay.
And that was back when you had participation rewards in Algorand. So just the act of having an Algorand account with a balance, you automatically got participation rewards. And so what they did is they had a no-loss lottery where people put their algo into this pool, and then it was earning the participation rewards automatically. So this is before the incentivized consensus. And then they would do, I think, a weekly draw, and a random winner would get all of those rewards, minus their fee or something.
Gotcha.
And it was pretty popular, but it was like
that was popular. It was free money.
Yeah. Well, you weren't earning participation rewards.
No, sure,
when you put your algo there, but I think there ended up being all kinds of issues, or people were gaming it and like joining right at the last minute, so they didn't have anything to kind of avoid cheaters.
Like Reti's much smarter about it.
Well, this other lottery system, what's nice is that it doesn't have to worry about managing the node or the rewards or how to handle those. So it just, when people add stake, it then takes that stake and adds it to Reti. And then Reti, it's all managed, and it's also then tracked on the TVL of Reti itself, which is kind of a nice benefit. And then it tracks like when they enter and if they enter, they basically have to be in for a full epoch. So like someone couldn't come in like 2 blocks before the drawing and add millions and millions of algo and be like 99% of the pool and automatically win. So they have to be in there the entire time. So their algo, for one, contributes to the rewards. And then are eligible to win. It's a pretty cool system. And then the way that it was implemented using the VRF to pick is pretty cool as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for that insight into how your beautiful mind works. And there's no doubt, obviously, it goes without saying, Transaction Labs and Patrick have been some of the most innovative folks.
Key ecosystem players.
Yeah, in the ecosystem, NFTs, non-fungible domains, incredible product. I use it. Everyone uses it. So keep on being you.
Thanks, man.
Keep us on our toes, for sure.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
Interesting to hear from Patrick. So tell me, Larkin, who have we got next, sir?
We have Alex from Valar here to tell us a little about Valar, and of course, a little bit what he's working on lately. Welcome, Alex.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. So, yeah, as Larkin said, we'd love to, maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit more about Valar, because Patrick, who was just on before you, was talking about Reti and how you pool together there. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how Valar gives a great user experience for staking. And then maybe, as Larkin said, we'd love to know what you've been up to this week out in sunny Barcelona.
Sure thing. So maybe to recap what Reti does, they capture stakers, so people with algos that want to stake that have smaller amounts as well as larger amounts.
Sure.
In either case, they have to send those algos to like a smart contract, which then gets staked.
Yes, and they have to trust the code in the smart contract, of course, to be correct.
I think all of us do trust that code.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a good track record, but in our case, the stakers keep their funds in their wallet.
Okay.
So they can select a node runner, whichever they like, start staking, and keep their algos in their wallet.
Got you.
There is a caveat, though.
Yeah, tell me the caveat then, yeah.
If you want to get rewards from block production, you need to have at least 30,000 algos.
Got it. And so, yes. So, Valar is a solution then, I guess, for people who don't have micro stake, right? Or very, very small stake, because it wouldn't make sense in that context.
Exactly.
But where, for example, you might run a 1 or 2 or 3 participation keys on the same node, and you have a reasonably large stake size, i.e. over the 30,000 algo minimum. Valar is a solution that basically means you don't have to run a node yourself, right?
Exactly. You don't run the node and you keep your funds in your wallet. Basically, you benefit from the staking activity, and that's it.
Yeah.
just count on paying a small amount to the node runner because they have to pay the electricity bill.
Absolutely. And thankfully, in my home, that's my wife. The electricity bill is under her name, not mine. So I basically don't care. I actually mean that. So
Hope she's watching.
yeah, she doesn't watch my stuff now. So.
If you have any spare spots on your nodes, maybe we can talk later.
Yeah. So it sounds good. Actually, you know, my node has had good uptime. I run it on a Mac. It's had good uptime, but it did crash actually. My Mac, not the Algorand software. And so what actually happened was I didn't realize it until I stopped getting the notifications because I have Para and I get a notification when I receive a reward.
Words, yeah.
And I woke up one morning and there's usually a few there, you know, in the morning time after 12 hours or whatever. And it's like, oh, there's none there. And then I went up and the computer was bombed out. So I was actually removed from the staking set. So I was the network pruned me out.
You know how that works?
Yeah. Which is like working as expected. Is what we wanted. And then I had to key reg again for 2 algo, and now I'm off, back producing blocks. But it's good to see it worked.
How long was it offline?
About like 8 hours. So some rewards lost there.
Yeah.
Okay, and you got kicked out of consensus.
Yeah.
So John has quite a big stake.
He's got me there. So tell us, what have you been doing this week at the Dev Retreat? Let me hold up. At the Dev Retreat.
First of all, enjoying the company. There's a lot of developers from different ends of the globe and the different projects, so just learning the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But also solving a potential problem that you might have. How often do you get rewards for blocks? Isn't it like every hour, every 10 minutes?
No, Christ. Yeah, like, you know, maybe 5 to 10 a day, depending on how lucky I am.
5 to 10, that's like quite a big span, right?
Yeah.
So you can also not say deterministically every that many hours.
Right, and I've had days where I've had like the biggest, if I take like the multiple of my worst day and my best day, like my best day I had 4 times the number of blocks minted as my worst day, which sounds ridiculous, but I mean on average it's you know it's fairly consistent, but yeah, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I've even mined, or I call it mined, but minted 2 blocks that were nearly back to back. They were like maybe five rounds separated, you know. So it's like one, and then 10 seconds later another one.
Yeah, that's what happens with the VRF actually.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're incredibly lucky and sometimes you're not lucky.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's sometimes users are concerned with that because they see like yesterday I made 10 blocks and the next day I make only 5 blocks.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with my node? Especially if you don't own the node like in your basement and you cannot check on it.
Yeah. And so what I typically do, by the way, because there are times when like I don't get a block for hours, and I'm thinking, I hope this thing
Something must be wrong.
something must be wrong. And so what I usually do is I jump onto NodeKit, which is the software I use because I run a node at home. But I want to say, you know, Andy Funk has got a great node management piece of software there. Funk's node is tippity top. Andy, what's it called again? Funk, right? So have a look at Funk. Very, very cool product by a very, very cool member of our ecosystem. But you know what I typically do is jump on NodeKit and then I just look at my last vote, because like your node is typically voting all the time, even if it's not winning the mined block or the minted block.
And that brings me to this week. So we've been looking at the probability of making a block within a certain amount of time since the last block.
Okay.
Because then if you're worried like, where is my block? You can always check what's the probability that I am running without a block for whatever amount of hours. And when you see that that's, I don't know, above 50, that it's a reasonable amount, you can stay calm and say, okay, maybe it's just a small change in the VRF. Maybe I'm just not lucky today.
Right. Cool.
So we've been looking kind of into that mechanism, how it works and how we can make it abstract and usable for users, because we don't want to teach them all about statistics and probability.
Sure.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. So I guess you would have your public key, I guess, and you would register your account with this service, whether it's through a web UI or whoever, and you expose like a view where people can check whether they're being extremely unlucky or a little unlucky, right?
Exactly. And you just need the address of the account. That's it.
Just need the address. Super cool.
So it's tomorrow. Are you going to show us tomorrow this thing, or are you?
Doing my best. I hope to get some sleep, get the coffee ready.
Well, that sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And it's great to have a look into some of the innovative ideas that are coming out of
it's great to have you.
Collaborative work here, yeah.
Thanks for having me, and now I'm off to continue on that solution.
Good
By the
luck.
way, just before you go, if someone wants to check out Valar, they want to learn a bit more, what's the right site to hit up, or where can they go to learn more about it?
Stake.valar.solutions.
Stake.valar.solutions.
Exactly.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Well, Larkin, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm sure this will get more views than Min and Mark's one that they did without me.
Absolutely.
And it's been wonderful to learn about AlgoKit 3. And thank you and the team for all the hard work.
Sure, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And now we bring in the head of DeFi, the god of the ecosystem, Fred Estante, who's going to talk to us about what's been going on in Algorand Town Center tonight.
Hey, John, Larkin, pleasure to see you guys here.
as well.
Nice
What
to
a
see
week,
you.
huh?
It's been a great week. This is a beautiful place to do a retreat, honestly.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah. And the retreat, the retreat has been awesome. There's no other way to put it the last few days. But there's another thing that got me really excited in the last few days. That, GP14, Governance Period 14,
yes.
just ended a few days ago. And now we're finally seeing like the very anticipated second wave in the change in the staking rewards on Algorand, right? Just in the last couple of days, and don't quote me on this because these numbers change all the time, but just in the last few days, we've seen over 100 new accounts online participating in consensus.
Wow.
Online stake went up by like 50 or 60 million algos, like some really incredible activity.
It's great.
Yeah, and it's what's really nice, as head of DeFi, I'm a little bit biased, but of course, I'm very much interested in the TVL of the DeFi ecosystem for the staking solutions, right? So, I was just checking numbers, again, a couple hours ago, probably slightly out of date already, but the Folks Finance LST has 190 million algos staked to it. Then you have, the Ready pooling with about 150 million algos. Then you have Valar delegated staking with roughly 35 million.
It's amazing.
Tinyman LST also roughly around 35 million. Messina about 15. Compacts 1 million and climbing, getting traction. So there's a lot of TVL flowing, a lot of stake flowing into these DeFi solutions or solutions that allow delegation of some sort. That is just beautiful to see.
Yeah.
Super excited.
It is the lifeblood. I mean, like, obviously, I'm not on that side of the business so much. I'm more obviously focused on the tech all the time. But like at the end of the day, when you build a platform like this, you need that lifeblood of the TVL, the value on the chain is really why we're doing all this, right? It's why we write all the secure contracts and build the AVM so people can express value on chain and build useful businesses. So, it is very much for me like the heartbeat of the platform, and so it's very important to see it grow, and I love to see it grow. That's what are you going to say?
No, it's incredibly important, of course. Yeah, it is lifeblood, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. So it's just great to see, online stake going up, becoming more decentralized, and all of that at the same time, they were making DeFi a lot more fun on Algorand. So, we have all these incredible numbers to go up in the next few days, but there's still a lot more to do. So AlgoFam, that's a call to action to you. You got a lot of work to do. There's incredible platforms out there. Pick your favorite poison, join the fun and make this whole thing more secure, more decentralized, and a lot more interesting at the same time.
Yeah, it's never been a better time. I mean, the rewards for staking are essentially at an all-time high. We're at this very early period where the rewards are at their highest. And so now is the time to get involved. And we have NodeKit, and there's community-driven clients to run a node, so it's super easy to do. Quite literally, I do this stuff on a consumer-grade laptop at home.
Yeah, no more excuse anymore. It's the easiest thing to do now.
It really is.
On Node. It's amazing what they've done on NodeKit. That's an incredible piece of product.
Yeah.
That was a good plug. That was a very smooth plug for NodeKit. I like it. All right, AlgoFam, you heard it from the guys. Plenty of options. You choose, all right? But, other than this, there's been a few quite interesting things that happened in the ecosystem over the last couple of days. And I'll just give a very quick roundup because this episode was already great. There's not a whole lot I can add. But in the DeFi side of things, Tinyman, they're spicing up, the DeFi battle. They just zeroed the LST fees a couple of days ago, to try to gain market share. So another very great option for the community to consider out there. Our friends from Compacts, they just released, an entirely updated roadmap. There's a lot of cool stuff coming. There's a governance platform that's coming. They're announcing lots of upgrades to the router, and then they also announced a lending market. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. A bunch of cool stuff coming to Compacts. And then, slightly on the DeFi side of things, more on the consumer as well, our friends from Alpha Arcade, which I know John kind of likes it, I think
I do like.
It is a cool app.
Yeah, so Alpha Arcade, they just released lots of, UI updates so you can better track the history of your positions. I'm pretty sure, John wins every single one of them. So
I don't. I don't. I'm actually a terrible predictor.
It turns out.
It turns out. But I very much enjoy the act of predicting the future. And
So you're like a Jim Cramer of prediction.
yeah, Jim Cramer.
I think now that you said this, John, I think it's going to be really easy to find your own chain account. I just figure out, who's missing all the predictions, and I'll just, counter you, everyone. Cool. So basically, our friends from Alpha Arcade, they just released lots of really cool UI updates, and they just surpassed $200,000 in volume on the predictions market just a couple of days ago. The market.
That was fast.
Yeah, it was super fast, only a couple of weeks. So those guys are on a roll. Very exciting.
It's great to see.
And then, okay, so moving on, from DeFi, our good friends from Lofty, which, basically the same friends from Alpha Arcade, those guys also just tokenized a pretty cool, very big farmland in New Jersey. Quite interesting. First time, at least I saw in the platform. They also released, a bunch of new properties in Hawaii, Florida, all kind of places that you want to spend, I think your vacation on. So pretty cool stuff. And then, getting a little bit into the infra side of things. Our good friends from Para just open sourced the iOS repo and also released a whole bunch of UI updates, a lot of great information there, including consensus stats. So now you can just, input your account and figure out, some basic statistics of like blocks proposed, fees collected, etc.
That's a great team. They're always rolling out fantastic features.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, talking about great team and great features, our mutual friend from AlgoSurf has also released.
Yes.
He also
P13.
released. Yes, the man, the legend. He also released lots of UI updates to AlgoSurf, including displaying, app local state, and obviously, consensus stats as well. So many ways that you can figure out how well you're doing in consensus, right? And I think maybe I want to wrap up today with the last point, but absolutely not least, and maybe that's something that I think you guys are enjoying this very much, that our friends from Go Plausible launched an MCP server for Algorand, basically bringing
really
AI
cool.
capabilities to Algorand. So, you guys can probably speak this much better than I can. It's pretty cool stuff, huh?
Yeah, model context protocol, right?
Yeah.
So this really enables Algorand to be hooked into LLMs. So you can ask LLMs questions about Algorand, and it will do it. It will figure out the answer. It will help you create accounts. It will help you look up balances. And so it's incredibly powerful. And I think that MG has done a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, he just integrated with the API for NF domains and a few others. So there's a whole bunch of like composability.
Yeah, I think there's like 100 some tools and resources he's made available in the MCP. And it's really cool work. And I think we can evolve that and really build something that's really incredible and easy to use. Because you're in a Claude desktop, for example, and it's just available. You just run one line install, and then you open up Claude, and it's there. You can ask it, "What's my account balance?" or send a transaction or payment transaction from one to another. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great to see it come from the ecosystem as well. That's the ethos of open source, right? That's the culture, right? It's not that it's always technologies do it or the foundation might do it, for example. But it's great to see people from the ecosystem like MG produce such high quality and important products.
Absolutely. Cool. And all right, guys, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for hosting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
Fred, I'm just disappointed you're not in your suit.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's kind of warm outside.
Great to see you.
One more
Wrong
thing
place
to park. Amazing. Thanks, guys.
All right, so that's it for this final episode of Season 2. It's been wonderful to hang out with Fred and Larkin.
Final and best.
Final and best, the finale. And we have covered over the course of Season 2 a whole bunch of things, from post-quantum to staking rewards to consensus to infrastructure to meme coins to ecosystem to developer tools. And so we've covered a lot of stuff, but we will be back with an exciting new form for Season 3 very shortly. Larkin.
And if I can just do a shameless call to action for the Algorand fam, please download Algorand 3.0, give it a try. Let us know what you think. Algorand TypeScript is in beta, so we're actively collecting feedback. Please give it a try and let us know.
Yeah,
It works for you.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.